Hey Marie, how are you today? Hey Karen, hey Kimberly, hey Lynn, thank you. I appreciate that. Hey Crystal, hey Paula, hey Barbara, hey Dawn, Gina, happy Tuesday. Hey Sharon, Margaret, Valerie, hey Beth, Delia, Becky, hey there from Sedona. Hey Lynn, oh you look great in that blue, thank you. It's one of my favorite colors. Hey Jill, hey Jeanette, hey Linda, hey Marie. Hey Angela, Karen, hey Kay, hey Carolyn, Patty, Connie, Nancy. All right, got a big crowd. Hey Jenny, Janet, Deb, hey Frida Lynn, hey Judy. All right, we got about 56, 57 people on right now, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Tonight's topic is a little bit on the technical side, but I went ahead and posted my notes about 10 minutes ago, so you can pull those up if you'd like and follow along and kind of use this as a reference. But I really wanted to make sure that, that I got my notes out there, because I think this is going to be a topic that will be very valuable for everybody, particularly as a reference point to go back and look at. What really prompted this topic, ingredients to avoid in cosmetic products, and understanding our no list, really what prompted this is I get so many questions, people saying, what about this product? What about that product? What about this product? And, is this clean? Is that safe? And so I really wanted to just equip you with the tools to really to better understand for yourself what's clean and what's safe, out there, and what ingredients to avoid. And I called this topic ingredients to avoid in cosmetic products. So it expands further than just skincare or color cosmetics. It really goes into detail on hair care products, fragrances, nail care products, really things that you need to look for when it relates to ingredients that are simply just not healthy for us to formulate with, number one, but also as a consumer, things that to be aware of. So we all have, we know what our no list is. We've got that available on our website. I went ahead, you'll notice in the form, I went ahead and just started the form with our no list for those of you who want to have all of that somewhere in writing. But keep in mind, I know that when you look at our no list, it can be a little daunting and a little overwhelming, because you see all these giant words that you don't necessarily know what these ingredients are, what they're classified as, or even why they're bad. And so what I wanted to do is go through specifically and give you some ideas of, what we look for, what we don't formulate with, and what the classifications of these ingredients on our no list are, so you really have a better understanding of why you want to avoid them. So really, just to get started, I'm going to start with a heading. You'll notice if you're looking at the notes, a heading that I call ingredient watch list. And these are really going through the details of our no list in greater detail, so you have a better understanding of what they are. First thing that, to really kick off that list is an ingredient called 1,4-dioxane. Now, the interesting thing about this, and the reason I wanted to lead with this, is because this is a classification of ingredients you're going to see pop up throughout this list. Those are ingredients you don't necessarily see on the ingredient listing because they aren't an added ingredient. They're not recognized as added ingredients, but they are contaminants that occur in formulations when different ingredients are mixed together. So 1,4-dioxane is one of those contaminant ingredients. It can be found in all kinds of products, ranging from skincare products, body care products, nail care, hair care, baby care products, and it's an ingredient that has a pretty bad health record as far as being a carcinogen and a cancer-causing ingredient, as well as having long-term negative impact on the organs, such as the kidneys primarily. But this is a contaminant that occurs when ingredients like polyethylene glycol, which is usually listed as PEG on an ingredient listing, or even sodium lauryl sulfate, which we'll cover in more detail a little bit later. But basically, these are ingredients these are contaminants that occur when these ingredients are present in a formula. Now, the interesting thing is that a study done by the Environmental Working Group that found at least 1/4 of all personal care products sold in the U.S. are contaminated with 1,4-dioxane. And a really scary thing is they took a look at 24 baby products, and out of those 24, 18 of those were contaminated with 1,4-dioxane. So, that's something that, it's not something you can identify on an ingredient list, but knowing what ingredients are in the formula that contribute to that 1,4-dioxane will be very helpful. And again, those are listed in my notes: polyethylene glycol, PEG, sodium lauryl sulfate, to name a few. Second ingredient to really avoid in skincare products would be chemical sunscreens. Clearly, those are found in sunblock products. They're found in lip care products. Anything that generally has an SPF listed on the ingredient, if they are not using physical or mineral block sunscreens. So ingredients that you look for would be PABA, which is a well-known kind of old-fashioned chemical sunscreen, avobenzone, oxybenzone, octisalate, benzophenone. Basically, anything that when you look at an SPF product and you look on the back panel under active ingredients, if it doesn't say titanium dioxide or zinc oxide, then it contains a chemical sunscreen. Now, why are these bad? Well, for starters, chemical sunscreens are really not that effective at protecting us from UVA radiation. Keep in mind when, back in the 80s, when SPF products started kind of emerging onto the market and we started becoming aware of the importance of using UV protection, the only really UV ray that we knew about that caused damage was UVB. A simple way to remember that is UVB stands for burning, UVA stands for aging. So the B is for burning, the A is for aging. Back in the 80s, when chemical sunscreens were developed and began to be introduced to the market, we didn't know about UVA rays or how they damaged the skin. The concept was pretty simple. If our skin didn't burn, then we were protected from the sun. Well, we know now much later that UVA is what actually causes the lines and wrinkles, what compromises our our DNA and really causes more long-term aging results. And chemical sunscreens, just quite frankly, aren't very effective at protecting against those, or nearly as effective as a physical block sunscreen, titanium dioxide or zinc oxide. But besides that, it's really suspected to be carcinogenic. And it can accumulate in the fatty tissue of our body. In fact, 97% of us have carry it in our urine if we use chemical sunscreen. So it stays around in the body. And it's a known hormone disruptor. So, it's certainly not something that you want to be using. Third thing is coal tar. Coal tar is an ingredient we don't see much of anymore, but it's still around in some medications. It's also around in things like mouthwash and toothpaste and mascaras as well. And typically it'll be listed as coal tar on the ingredient. There are a couple of other names for that you can also pick up in the notes that I listed as well. So coal tar is an ingredient that's known as a carcinogen. In fact, it's banned in Europe. And I think this is probably a good time to say that, when we formulate our products, there are different standards that you formulate by. There are US standards, there are European standards. European standards are more strict by far than the US standards. And so we always formulate to EU standards, European Union standards, just to ensure that we have the safest restrictions on the ingredients that we use. So coal tar, unfortunately, although it's banned in Europe, is still used commonly in the US. And the problem with that is it's derived from petroleum. And anything that's derived from petroleum can really contain heavy metals that can cause carcinogenic result. They have heavy metals. They can be toxic to the brain. So coal tar is an ingredient that really is not something you want to use either. Fourth ingredient is lead. Tricky thing about lead is another one of those ingredients that also will never be on the ingredient list. It is a contaminant. And it's a contaminant that comes from things that are mined from the earth, typically oxides, heavy metals. So lead is something that's hard to avoid, but it's something that needs to be tested anytime natural mined ingredients are used. Pigments, natural ingredients from the earth, all of those we put through a separate, very rigid testing protocol, which really explains some of the length of our testing process, just to ensure the lead levels are not at a level that is going to be unsafe or even present at all in the formulas. So lead, again, is something you want to avoid. We hear a lot about that. We get a lot of questions about lead in ingredients. It's a topic that pops up in the news every few years. It's important to know lead is not an ingredient that's added, but it is something to watch out for in naturally derived products. The fifth product is called phthalates. Phthalates is something you hear a lot about because it has gotten such a negative press, and it has a very negative health record. Phthalates typically are found primarily now in hair care products, nail care products, and fragrances. And when we get to fragrances, I'll explain to you a little bit about why it can be a little bit deceiving. Phthalates are solvents, which means they help dissolve ingredients, which is particularly helpful for things like hairspray. Phthalates are not really used much in cosmetic products anymore, but they are commonly found in some volatile products like hairspray and fragrances, because they do help ingredients blend together. But phthalates, they'll be listed as phthalates or DBP, DEHP, DMP, or DEP on an ingredient list. They're hormone disruptors, and they are suspected to be carcinogens as well. The real problem with phthalates is that they have a history of causing birth defects, particularly in males, and they can interfere with fertility, and they've been linked to low sperm count. So they're certainly not something that we encourage using. And when we do finally come out with fragrances or colognes, ours of course will be phthalate free, and that'll be something that we promote. So if you're looking at your fragrances and you don't know for sure whether they contain phthalates and they're not listed as phthalate free, it might be worth a call to the manufacturer to ask them, because phthalates are definitely something that you want to avoid in your products. The sixth ingredient is called something you're very familiar with, formaldehyde. What you may not be as familiar with is something called formaldehyde donors. Now, formaldehyde is an ingredient that used to be used a lot in nail care products. It's basically a preservative. It was used widely in a lot of bath and body products, skincare products, but not for the last several years. Now, the interesting thing about formaldehyde is it can also be present in the form of a contaminant. So that's what we call formaldehyde donors, which means that when you have ingredients that are like urea, quaternium, 15, a lot of ingredients that you commonly see on many bath and body skincare products, hair care products, when they are either in the bottle or when they are applied to the skin, they can release formaldehyde onto the skin, or even in the packaging, and that's called a formaldehyde donor. So it doesn't have to actually be formaldehyde as a listed ingredient. Those ingredients I just mentioned put off gases that are formaldehyde gases. And so they are certainly something that we don't want to use. They are formaldehyde donors, can be a skin irritant, an allergen, but they can also cause immune system toxicity and liver problems. So that is certainly something that is something you want to avoid. And those ingredients that you find in most non-clean formulas they contribute to that formaldehyde doning. Seventh ingredient would be ingredients containing amines. If you look at those on the ingredient list, it's anything that ends in A-M-I-N-E. DEA, TEA, and ETA, and MEA are how they're usually abbreviated on an ingredient list. These ingredients are wetting agents and emulsifiers, and they can be found in quite a few products that are available on the general market. And again, the ingredients to look for are TEA, DEA, MEA, or anything similar to that, and I've listed those on that form so you can take a look at as well. The problem with these ingredients is that they're contaminated with nitrosamines, which is a chemical that is known to be cancer-causing in humans. So these, of course, are ingredients that you don't want to avoid, or that you do want to avoid. The eighth ingredient is called fragrance. Now, don't get me wrong, all fragrance is not bad. However, fragrance is listed on an ingredient list as fragrance because it's considered a trade secret. So whenever you have fragrances and you look at the ingredient listing, it usually lists water, alcohol, and fragrance. That doesn't mean there are 3 ingredients in there, because fragrance usually consists of about 100 or more ingredients that are sometimes natural, sometimes synthetic. The problem is we don't know what is in them as a fragrance. Many ingredients that are in fragrances would be things like phthalates that we just mentioned, which you would never know because they're not required to be listed on an ingredient list for a fragrance. So fragrances are not always bad. As if they're a natural fragrance, that's a great thing. But if they're a chemical fragrance, they do contain a lot of hidden ingredients that you do want to watch out for. It's often, which is about 75%, contain chemicals like phthalates, and they can hide up to 100 different chemicals. And some of those are neurotoxin and skin irritating ingredients as well. So transparency is very, very important when it comes to labeling and knowing what you're using. Unfortunately, anything that is listed as fragrance has a lot of ifs that are hard to get around. Number 9 would be ethoxylated emulsifiers. That would be ingredients that are like diethylene glycol, propylene glycol, ethylene glycol, and polyethylene glycol. Very common, very, very common ingredients for many, many, many products that are currently on the market. They're found in fragrances, shampoo, baby washes, lotions, makeup, foundations, soaps, anything basically you put on your skin, you can find these ingredients. And again, those are listed as diethylene glycol, DEG, propylene glycol, PG, ethylene glycol, EG, or polyethylene glycol, which is PEG. Now, the biggest risk factor in these ingredients is they are petroleum-derived byproducts, and they do contain some contaminants and carcinogens that we do want to avoid, as well as the potential of containing that 1,4-dioxane, which we mentioned earlier, as well as lead, nickel, and arsenic. So clearly, they can be very toxic when applied topically. The 10th ingredient is called silicones. Silicones are ingredients that are very, very, very commonly used in all sorts of cosmetic, topical, personal care products, skincare, color cosmetics, hair care. They basically give everything that really luxurious slip. So they're wonderful to use aesthetically, but from a safety standpoint, they're really not great at all. Ingredients to look for that are silicones would be methicone, trimethicone, dimethicone, cyclomethicone, dimethicone, carbapenem, anything that ends in ICONE is a silicone ingredient. Problem with silicones is they occlude the skin. They put a barrier on the skin, almost like plastic wrap, that congests the microbiome and doesn't allow the skin to breathe. Another problem with that is that it's really bad for people who have acne or who are prone to acne, as well as they really trap bacteria and oil on the skin. So you can see why that would be really bad for somebody who has acne. But the skin also becomes very addicted to silicones. And it causes the skin to become dehydrated over time. So silicones, although they feel great, they give a great aesthetic to the formula, they really can be very bad on the skin, which is why we try so hard to use silicone alternatives. Well, no, we don't try so hard. We do use silicone alternatives in all of our products, particularly skin, color cosmetic products, to really make up for that luxurious feel that you're not getting from the silicones. Number 11, mineral oil. Again, it's a petroleum derivative found in a lot of products, not nearly as much as they used to be. More commonly found in color cosmetic products, particularly foundations or anything that's waxy. The thing with mineral oil, things to look for would be like liquid paraffin, baby oil, white oil. It's called several things on an ingredient list, also mineral oil. But it's a petroleum agent that kind of coats the skin, again, almost like silicones. It coats the skin. It doesn't allow the skin to breathe, and it doesn't allow the other ingredients to absorb effectively into the skin. It can really promote premature aging. So mineral oil, we've known for years that's not the best ingredient to use, but there's a reason why and why you should avoid that. Number 12, parabens. Parabens are preservatives that we've really found out in later years the dangers of parabens. We used to use parabens very commonly in cosmetics because we knew that if you used all different forms of parabens, which typically we methylparaben, butylparaben, isobutylparaben, polyparaben, we knew that if you used a little bit of all those different parabens, you could pretty much make sure that nothing was going to contaminate a product. Either through just storage or when you're using the product and you're dipping in it. Parabens really make sure that no bacteria can form in a formula. But they are endocrine disruptors. They've been linked to cancer, and there's certainly things that we've been trying to avoid in formulas for a number of years. The industry is really moving in that direction as far as avoiding products that contain parabens, although a lot of mass market products still do contain parabens. So that's something that's very, very important to avoid in formulations. They, like I said, play a role in cancer. They have been linked to birth defects, but more commonly, they are estrogen mimicking ingredients and have been found in tissues that contain cancer. So I think we still have a lot to learn about how bad parabens are for us, but this is enough to know that you really need to avoid those. Number 13, nanoparticles. Now, nanoparticles are something that are currently being more heavily regulated in the United States. There are some ingredients that, like titanium dioxide and zinc oxide, which we know are really great physical block sunscreens, but they can be a little whitening. And so the industry developed a new way to create non-whitening forms of these ingredients by shrinking the molecule size down to a size that's called a nanoparticle. The problem with nanoparticles is when they become so small, they can actually absorb into the body, which we know is not great, as well as, if you're breathing them, they can also cause respiratory issues as well. So, it's believed that, the particle size really does make them pretty dangerous to the skin. And when they do penetrate to the human brain, they can cause cellular damage, cancer, gene damage, and of course they accumulate in the body, which is not great as well. Number 14, petroleum distillates or solvents. Now, these are primarily found in mascara and makeup products, as well as some skincare products. The ingredients that you need to look for are petroleum distillate or Stoddard solvent, light liquid paraffin. Those would how they appear on the ingredient listing. And really, this causes more of a respiratory problem. And also they've been linked to connective tissue diseases, but more commonly, these ingredients are related to respiratory issues. Number 15, p-phenylethylamine. Now these are found, you're not going to find in skincare products typically. They're usually found in hair care products, bleaches, hair dyes, henna, that type of thing. So these ingredients have been linked to bladder cancer. They can be a neurotoxin. Again, not something you have to worry about in skincare, but if you are using hair colorant and things like that, do take a look at the ingredient listing to make sure those aren't in there. Number 16, retinol and retinol derivatives. Now, in a previous life, I was a big fan of retinol. It's one of the most highly documented and well-known anti-aging ingredients. But a lot has really come to the surface about retinol and retinol derivatives in the last years. That has made it not a great ingredient to use, particularly if you're formulating clean formulas. Ingredients to look for would be retinol palmitate, retinol, vitamin A palmitate. It appears several different ways on an ingredient listing. One reason you want to avoid this is because there was a study done in 2011 that really showed the presence of sunlight enhances, when combined with retinol, enhances skin cancer lesions by 21%. It's also been linked to cancer and other forms of reproductive toxicity. Not to mention the fact that it's simply a skin irritant that has a high rate of allergic response and topical inflammation. We also know that 80 to 85% of the signs of aging is due to inflammation, either from the sun or from topically applied products. So unnecessary inflammation due to retinol is something that we do want to avoid. So if that gives you a good explanation of why we don't use that in our formulations. Another product to avoid, number 17, would be siloxanes. Siloxanes can appear either with the word siloxane, or it can actually be present in one of the silicones called cyclomethicone. It's typically found in facial treatments, hair care, deodorants, moisturizers, but these really are toxins that bioaccumulate in the body. And they're believed to be endocrine disruptors, and they have a negative effect on fertility. So research has also linked it to uterine tumors, immune system compromise, and nervous system issues. So that is certainly another ingredient we want to avoid. Number 18 would be ethoxylated surfactants. Now, I know that sounds like a big word, and surfactants in themselves are not unhealthy. In fact, anything that causes something to foam is called a surfactant. Ethoxylated surfactants, however, are very different. That would be ingredients like sodium lauryl sulfate, sodium laureth sulfate, sodium salt, sulfuric acid. Those are ingredients that are unhealthy surfactants and that are not necessarily great to use. You still see them widely used in cosmetics, hair care products, anything that lathers. So if something lathers, it's important to know where that's coming from. The surfactants we use in our cleanser are actually derived from coconut oil. So they're very safe. They're great surfactants that give a lot of cushion to the skin without having to worry about the negative effects of these ethoxylated surfactants. The problem with these is that those ingredients penetrate pretty quickly. They're not metabolized by the liver, and they're considered carcinogens, as well as skin irritants. So it's definitely something to avoid. You may notice a lot of hair care companies are not using these ethoxylated surfactants anymore because they can really dry the skin out pretty badly, or the hair out pretty badly. Number 19, talc. Talc is an ingredient that's found in powders, in color cosmetic powders, sunscreens. Talc is listed on the ingredient as talc or talcum powder, so it's really pretty straightforward. It's in the same family as asbestos, and it really has been linked to ovarian cancer. Also, you've probably seen a lot of the lawsuits that are now happening because of the talc being used in the genital area and contributing to ovarian cancer and the lawsuits that are surrounding that. So definitely talc is one of those ingredients that's not used as much as it used to, but it is still often found in powder products, either like baby powders or in powder products that you use in color cosmetics. Number 20, toluene. Toluene is found primarily in nail care products, either nail polish or nail hardeners. It's listed as toluene pretty much on the ingredient list. And it is known to be a carcinogen as well. Triclosan. Triclosan is an ingredient that is used in many mass market ingredients or products as an antibacterial ingredient. So of course, you know, it's registered as in the government as a pesticide, but it's used in cosmetic at lower levels because it does have the ability to provide antibacterial benefits. It's listed as triclosan on the ingredients, but of course we know not only are antibacterial ingredients bad for our microbiome because they kill off the good and the bad bacteria that we need for our skin and our bodies to remain healthy, it's also a known endocrine disruptor and can cause liver toxicity, so that's not great either. Number 22, hydroquinone. Hydroquinone is found not so much anymore, thank goodness, but ingredients that are skin lighteners. It's not readily available anymore, but you still do find some prescription products that use hydroquinone because it is a very effective skin lightening ingredient. It's listed as hydroquinone, but it has been linked very directly to causing cancer and having severe irritation response when applied to the skin. It's a very unstable ingredient to work with. So I would say if you're using something with hydroquinone, stop, because it's just not the best. It's not the best thing to be using. There are so many natural skin lightening ingredients where hydroquinone is really not what you want to use. Number 23, aluminum salts. These are found in antiperspirants, and they're mainly used to kill bacteria that cause odor and to seal the sweat glands. They're listed as aluminum chloride, aluminum chlorohydrate, aluminum hydroxybromide. So you know they're easy to find on the ingredient list, and they're known to be neurotoxin ingredients that accumulate in your fat cells. So you know there's still some debate whether these aluminum salts have an effect on breast cancer or Alzheimer's. I think the jury's still out on that, but we do know that they have been linked to toxicity as they accumulate in your fat cells. And then the last set of ingredients is called butylated compounds. These are found in moisturizers, skin treatments, cosmetics, but what's scary is they're also very commonly found in food. These are synthetic antioxidants or preservatives that really keep things stable. On the ingredient listing, they would be listed as BHA or BHT, and like I said, they're very commonly found in foods. The problem with these is they can induce an allergic response on the skin. They have been listed as an endocrine disruptor and a potential carcinogen for humans. So definitely something you want to avoid as well. And that really pretty much covers everything that we have on our no list, just to give you a more detailed look at why we avoid the ingredients that we do. So I just want to go through here and see what kind of questions we've got. And remember, if you have any questions, please let me know. What about acetone to soak nails off? I know you've got to get those off somehow, and I know acetone is certainly not the safest ingredient to use. If there are alternatives to that, I don't know, but I would certainly look for one if you have that available. I will stop using foundation with silicone immediately. Yeah, you know, they're hard to avoid in color cosmetic products specifically, but at least you know what to look for now. Crystal, I'm guessing no paraffin wax and getting my petties. You know, there are alternatives to paraffin. So if you can avoid that, that'd be great as well. Helen, love your shirt. That color looks great on you. Thank you so much. Beth, is there any way we can make this public? If we could get people to watch, they would come to Trora immediately. You know, all this information is pretty much reserved for those who are members here, those who are consultants and are members of this Facebook group. I posted my notes so you can certainly share those with people. I think that would be a great thing to do. I think it's important we try to keep all this information, since it is more technical. Just between all of us, I know it can be scary for, you know, a lot of consumers to get a hold of this without having a reference point. Linda, this makes me want to look at everything I use. You know, it does me too. In fact, I do look at everything I use, everything I eat, and everything I put on my skin and body, and it's not something I, you know, was always ever concerned with before. So, yeah, it definitely does. Froggy, a dermatologist often recommends petroleum Vaseline to apply to surgical areas for healing. Is Vaseline considered a bad ingredient? For regular use, yeah. It's not a great ingredient. I would say if your doctor recommends it for surgical healing, the reason they do that is because it puts a plastic wrap black coating on the skin. So temporarily, I'd say that's fine. Long term, I definitely wouldn't recommend using it. Barbara, is glycerin good to use in the skin? Glycerin's a great ingredient, and plant-derived glycerin is very, very effective as a humectant to draw moisture to the skin. Also to lock moisture on the skin. It's a great ingredient. All right. Any other questions? I know this was a little bit lengthy. I tried to go quickly without rushing it, but the good thing is you do have the notes you can reference back to if you want to watch this again with the notes printed out. It's always good to have that available. I don't see any more questions coming in. But thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Remember, if you have questions throughout the week, be sure to post them here. We go through and I go through and answer those daily, and so we'll get those answered for you as well. And be sure to come back next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central. We'll have another great topic for you guys. And I just wanted to give a shout out to all of you on the East Coast who are preparing for some bad weather in the next few days. You know, we're thinking of you. Hope everything, you know, hope you stay safe and everything goes well for you. Please stay safe. Get to safety if you need to. Don't be a hero. But I do want to say we're thinking about you and wish you the very best. So let me just say to everybody else, take care. And I can't wait to see you back here next week. And I hope you have a wonderful week. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.